So in this video, I want to show you kind of what ChatGPT remembers and how it remembers it and how you can kind of alter what it remembers about your chats. And actually what it thinks about you. And so to start out with, real quickly, if we go over here and open this kind of sidebar right here, here are, chats that I've had recently. And these chats, if you go back into the chat, it will remember the contents of that chat, right? But outside of it, it may not remember it. It may remember some things, and I'll show you where it stores that stuff. But so if you want to get rid of a particular chat and you don't want it to remember it anymore, you can hit these three buttons and you can just delete the entire chat. And that is useful to some extent. But it may remember that information in another spot. And so if we go up here to where our settings and everything are, in another video I showed about customize ChatGPT. And we'll see that in here too when we go to settings. So when we go to settings and personalize, there's custom instructions. And if I click on that, it brings up customize GPT. And like I said, I did this in another video and explained how this worked and gave some examples. But here you can add stuff you want it to remember about the type of things you discuss with it, and also how you want it to respond. How with the format maybe you want the responses to be in, or the way you want it to, the tone that you want it to use. Like if you want to use a joking tone or a serious tone or a lighthearted tone or whatever. But today what we want to talk about is actually its memory, and it has its memory down here, and you can turn the memory off. You can leave it the way it is, or you can turn it off. You can clear the ChatGPT's memory entirely, or you can go to manage it. And this will list everything that's in ChatGPT's memory. So we're going to click on manage. So I'm going to actually blur some of this stuff out because it has like personal and private details and stuff in here, or personal information. So there could actually be sensitive information in here that it remembers. But what I'll use as an example is down here. It says is interested in street photography. I must have talked about street photography. And it says down here enjoys photographing forests, lakes, and abandoned buildings with foliage around them, especially in infrared. And so I must have been talking to about photography in something. So any of these things right in here, and we could scroll up, and there are even more things. We can hit this little trash can, and it will forget it. The problem is you can't just put it back in. You'd have to be talking to it again, and it would have to note it again for whatever reason. So if I tell it I'm interested in street photography in a chat, and I decide to delete that, it may come back in again if I'm talking about street photography again, but it depends on the context, probably. So it decides if you talk about it enough, it may put it in there, but you don't really have control over what it puts in per se, but you can take out what it's put in. So you can check it every now and then. So if it's remembering stuff you don't want it to remember, you go into this area, look for it, and delete it. But remember, if you delete it, it's out, and you can't really guarantee that it will go back in again, and you can't guarantee it won't go back in again. So if you talk about photography again, or street photography, it might come back in. But if you delete it, it may not put it back in. So in other words, it remembers what it wants to remember. But if you talked about street photography enough, it would probably put it back in again. So anyway, these are things that it remembers, and it can use these little facts that it's taken down, or notes that it's taken down, so that when it's responding to you, it might mention something related to that.